Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I want to talk about the chart of David Bowie, the famous musician, songwriter, actor. He was very popular when I was a kid and for a long time, for many years. I think he still is popular. Um, but I basically grew up listening to a lot of his music and seeing him in films like Labyrinth, I believe, and there was other films and whatnot. Really unique voice, very unique artist in general. Um, just kind of this icon, if you will. Um, Good music. I mean, it's not terribly exciting by today's standards. It's very, but at the time it was great. Very groundbreaking, very original, unique, and just music that everyone could like and appreciate. Very non-offensive pop. It was popular pop music, but good pop music. I mean, I don't know what you call it, but it was different at different times. Doesn't matter really. David Bowie, 8th of January 1947, 9 a.m. Brixton, London, England, UK. So Brixton, just side comment here. The Clash have a song, Guns of Brixton. That's all I know about Brixton, is that the Clash have a song called, a great song, by the way, Guns of Brixton. Maybe there's a lot of guns in Brixton. I don't know. Well, not anymore, right? They took all the guns away, but maybe Brixton's a violent place. I don't know. Anyway, never been there. Alrighty. He's a Capricorn Sun conjunct Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Mars is combust, but both in the 12th house. Capricorns are Elvis Presley was a Capricorn. I think he was born the same day as Elvis Presley. 12th house is the house of creativity. Capricorns are great. Can be surprisingly very creative, right? Because we have the 3rd house in Pisces, 5th house in Taurus. So, and this applies, right? Like we always look, we can make a chart for every planet, put it on the ascendant, and we'll look at the planets from the houses from that planet and get an idea of how it's relating, because that's how it works. It's not just fixed. It's not just like this dry, dogmatic, rigid thing where you can only ever see it from the ascendant. You can move the chart around and see it from any planet, get a good idea of how that planet works. So anyway, Capricorns can be very creative, surprisingly. Yeah. And if you notice, Capricorns always have hair things like the pompadour. That's a very Capricornian look, the pompadour. And at times he had very different styles depending on he changed his style a lot, but I think he had a pompadour at various times in his life, like Elvis. Capricorns are bosses. Capricorns are leaders. Capricorns have no problem taking control and taking charge and working hard and doing what needs to be done and getting things, starting things, initiating things, being the boss. And he was very initiative because Mars was conjunct his Sun. It's combust. I mean, so this is somebody, Mars conjunct the Sun is somebody who can get burnout with Mars, and they can become overly just burnout and angry, aggressive. Being in the 12th house, he was probably prone to temper tantrums because in the 12th house is the house of loss. And whenever Mars is in the 12th house, it's like they don't really get angry easily, but then they explode with anger at times. So, but still, he was very action oriented. Like when the planets are combust, the Sun, they don't always act negatively. It's just periodically they do. Like, because I have Venus conjunct the Sun, I just observed this again and again. They can function normally and really powerfully. They actually get empowered by the Sun, but then periodically they break down, and it depends on the other factors. Some planets combust the Sun will do it more often than others based on, the rest of the chart. But any planet that is conjunct the sun, combust, can act, behave healthfully, like in the proper way. A lot of the time, it's just sometimes it gets that burnout quality, and then it becomes very irritable, very irritated, very annoyed, angry, short-tempered, like that. But anyway, Capricorn and Mars are both, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so it's a very hardworking, controlled Mars. You probably didn't see him explode in anger very often, but once in a while, it's possible. So Moon, got this super heavy moon here. Man, this is a tough moon. It's in Leo, which is great for creativity and everything. But I actually know somebody, I won't say who it is, but I know somebody who has this combination of Moon, Pluto, Saturn, although Pluto is directly conjunct this person's moon, and Saturn's a little further away. But Saturn conjunct the moon even on its own is very, very difficult. It's emotionally starves the person. So they just have like very difficult upbringing, childhood, and it's very, very hard for them to feel emotionally satisfied. I think the retrograde probably helps somewhat, because there's more of a process. It's more of a internalization and intellectualization. It's not direct. It has more of a spiritual component to it, or reflective, self-reflective quality. And so I think that helps a lot. Being his moon conjunct the descendant, that's actually very good for the moon. So that's a very good positive quality. And performing in front of other people, because this is not only the house of relationships, it's the house of others, and especially like speaking or singing, being heard, voice, being heard is very prominent conjunct the descendant. The tighter the conjunction with the descendant, the stronger it is, and this is a very tight conjunction. So this moon, in a way, is very strong, but very difficult as well with the Saturn and Pluto here. But he could really connect. Moon conjunct the descendant is actually quite good. He could really connect with people here, and in a very Plutonic Saturnian way. So like, Saturn's ruling his ascendant, because his ascendant is in Aquarius. So his personality was wrapped up in Saturn, which was very controlled and very weird, because this is the Uranian Saturn. This is the Aquarian Saturn. Like when he came out as Ziggy Stardust with that androgynous alien look, and he changed his look so often. It was like, every so many years, periodically, he would change his whole look, his whole appearance. That's Pluto conjunct ascendant Lord. And then conjunct his moon, he was changing not only his look, but his whole way of being. Like he was like a different person, just periodically, just completely changed his whole character. But he could really reach people with this combination. Moon in Leo is highly creative. Moon on the descendant, very great for getting your heart out to the masses, really allowing the masses to see who he is, which is kind of like this, again, this cold androgynous alien, this frozen icon, right? Frozen in a sense that he's just like, I mean that in a good way, I'm trying to express exactly how it comes across to me. Saturn's an authority. Saturn is very high. Saturn is the top, right? So it's very respectable, a good Saturn, a dignified Saturn. So not that Saturn in Leo is that dignified. It's not, because it's opposite its sign in Aquarius. But the thing is, when a planet is in the 7th house, it's or any house, it's always reflecting back on the opposite house. So here we are getting a reflection of Saturn in Aquarius. And so it's reflecting back on him. And that's one of the things about planets in the 7th house. Planets in the 7th house can be projected out onto others much more easily and readily. And it actually happens that way, where planets in the 7th house, we attract those type of people onto us. So if he has Saturn in Leo in the 7th house, he's going to attract a person who is like Saturn in Leo to him, whose moon, Saturn in Leo, Pluto, Leo, all these planets, and those could be like his wife, which is interesting. He married his first wife, who he married out of convenience, and he said, "I'm not in love with you." It's probably a good thing. I mean, can you? That is Moon, Saturn, Pluto, and Leo. Like, and then they had a kid together, and then he married a model. I don't know how he felt about that, but his whole relationship thing was very twisted. That's Pluto, twisted. Because why? Because not because he came out as gay or bisexual, but because he wasn't, in fact, fully gay. It was more experimental for him. It was like he at least in what I read from Wikipedia, he confessed to being heterosexual and just experimental with bisexuality and that whole thing. Gay, it was just part of a thing for him, but it wasn't. He did not want to be like a spokesperson for the gay or bisexual community, and he had a problem with that. Like, I think people wanted him to be, the gay community wanted him to be, and he did not. He was a musician, and that's what he really cared about. Everything else was secondary to him. But so we get some of that here. Especially, I think it's great that he married a woman out of convenience. That's so Saturn. Saturn conjunct the moon. He's like, "I'm not in love with you." And I think it's for the best, something like that. But yeah, I mean, this gives him a lot of popularity, especially because Saturn is the ascendant lord, and it's reflecting back on the ascendant, so giving power to him, making him stronger than others. That's what happens when you have planets in poor dignity in the 7th house. It means you attract people who are weaker than you, and because the planet is reflecting back on the ascendant, it's making the ascendant strong, so it's making him strong versus the people who he brings into his life, which are going to be weaker than he is. That's how that works. So anyway, but Pluto's there, and Pluto's always strong, so it's not like, and Moon conjunct the descendant is great anyway, so it's a mixed bag, right? And so like the Aquarius ascendant is responsible for him for that, androgynous alien look, Ziggy Stardust, and also just being like always having this weird, different, stylish new appearance. I mean, he was a style icon, always, having. I mean, he appeared in Zoolander as the judge for the walk off. I can't remember the underwear thing. Yeah. Anyway, like that's very much his Aquarius ascendant. It's being a style icon. Also, Venus conjunct the MC in Sagittarius, and the South Node conjunct the South Node. South Node conjunct the in 10th house conjunct the MC. Venus being the significator of arts and music and creativity, very, very strong for artistic success. And he knew he wanted to be a musician / artist from a young age. He was also an artist, like a painter, and his paintings were worth millions, I think, after his death. But yeah, very, very creative type. South Node conjunct Venus indicates somebody who's born with creative genius, with creativity, with beauty, with a sense of arts and beauty, and all the Venusian qualities, the femininity, the beauty, the joy, the artistic creativity, the aesthetics, all of that, right? So from a young age, early success and fame. Jupiter also is in a very prominent position. This is 9th house quadrant, but 10th house, whole sign, 10th sign. So Jupiter is very prominent here. It's ruling his 2nd house of voice, also wealth and values and knowledge, and as well the 10th house, 10th and 11th house cusp. So both wealth houses, popularity groups, networks, career success, career in general, very prominent, very strong angular Jupiter. Not great in Scorpio, but shows a lot of ups and downs, deaths and rebirths, and that is a very common theme for him. Just constantly changing his look, changing his style, changing his music, changing everything. That's Scorpio, just periodically disappearing from the limelight and reemerging as a new character. That's Scorpio, 8th house. And ninth, he does have a lot of 9th house influence as well. He probably kept that more private, but he was very religious. He almost wanted to be a Buddhist monk at one point, and then I think he realized that he loved music more than Buddhism or religion. But he was very strong into Buddhism and belief of God in general. He strongly believed in a all-powerful God. So that's very much relating to this Jupiter in 9th house. Jupiter's our beliefs anyway. Jupiter does great in the 9th house. Not so great in Scorpio, but 9th house nonetheless. So that's probably why he couldn't devote himself fully to religion or spirituality, that sort of thing. See, Mercury is ruling the 4th and 5th house, as well as the 8th house. It's in Capricorn in the 11th house, approaching the 12th house. I would say this is adding a lot to his creativity and his career success and just being his general popularity. 11th house has a lot to do with popularity among very specific groups. Yeah, so that's good for acting. He was also an actor. All these planets are good for acting. Acting, speaking, just general creativity. It is ruling the 5th house. 5th house in Gemini is excellent for creativity. Mars is ruling the 3rd house, expression. That's, very strong in the 12th house of creativity. Neptune is very strong, believe it or not. Neptune is stationary retrograde, very slow at 9 seconds per day. And by the way, Moon is almost out of bounds. Mercury is out of bounds. Uranus, Pluto. So he has a lot of out of bounds planets, or almost out of bounds. But Neptune is very, very strong. Neptune is the planet of creativity. It's the co-ruler of Pisces. It's the planet of illusion, delusion, fantasy, drugs and alcohol. And he, like so many famous people, he had issues with drugs and alcohol. I don't know alcohol, but at least cocaine. But creativity, Neptune, a prominent Neptune for any type of artist is excellent, excellent. So this is co-ruling his 2nd house. A lot of people don't look at it like that, but I still think it has influence, even if it's not the primary, even if it's not like the physical, it still has an energetic, spiritual influence. Even though it's generational, very slow moving, it's still very powerful, right? So 8th house. And probably 8th house is not the house that we would normally look to for artistic creativity, but 8th house is a very powerful house. It's in the sign of Libra. So again, Venus ruled. Venus is in the 10th house, or conjunct the MC, very prominent. Libra rules, has a lot to do with beauty and fashion, design, arts, all the aesthetic things. It's very excellent for. 8th house deals with death and rebirth and recreation, and we know that he had this thing where he would develop a caricature, an image, right? And that has to do with Aquarius. It doesn't have to do with the changing part. Doesn't have to do with Aquarius, but the eccentricity has to do with Aquarius in ascendant. But 8th house would have to do with him like reinventing himself constantly, constant reinvention. That's a very much Pluto, Scorpio, 8th house kind of theme. So his creativity was constantly being reinvented. His looks, his musical style, his whole being. And again, that's going back to like this Pluto, Saturn, Moon, 8th house here, Jupiter, Scorpio, even Chiron's in Scorpio, that probably adds to it. Yeah, and this Neptune is making aspect to Mercury, Mars, and Sun. Even though it's a square, it's still an aspect, so connecting to that. We have a sextile to this, these conjunctions, Pluto, Saturn, Moon. So that's quite good. In other words, it's connected. This creativity is influencing his sun, his moon. So that's quite strong, and the nodes as well. That's very influential. Highly creative Neptune that's stationary. North Node conjunct Uranus in Gemini. That's great. That's fantastic for becoming like more and more unique, original, iconic, independent-minded. And as he got older, he just became like this legendary figure, you know, like this awe-inspiring, brilliant man who's just, you know, unapproachable. High, you know, massive amount of respect. The fourth house isn't so much to do with fourth house is more like building you know, empires. It could be real estate, it could be like just building stature and status. It's collecting energy in the fourth house. It's the fifth sign, however, so there's still a creative element to it, and it's in Gemini, so it's still going into his creativity, his career success, his wealth, all that. But it's conjunct Uranus, which is brilliant. I think he just became more Uranian as he got older, even though his ascendant is in Aquarius. He became essentially more unique, creative, and just iconic as he got older. So, guys, that's pretty much David Bowie. I didn't touch on this. Chiron square the moon, Saturn. I mean, with this aspect, I would think he did have mental health issues, though I did not read anything about it. Obviously, he kept it together enough, and maybe these being retrograde, Pluto and Saturn, kept it sort of hidden from public view. And then this square to Chiron doesn't help either, because Chiron is the wounded healer, rejected by his mother at birth, shot with a poisonous arrow, eventually becomes a he is a healer. He is a shaman, a wise man, a teacher, astrologer, philosopher, but it comes with a lot of wounds and rejects. So I think there was a lot of issues that just got swept under the rug, mental health issues, just happiness issues. He could have been very depressed at a lot of times, and just kind of kept it hidden from public view. But this also suggests that he was very had a lot of empathy for the down and out, because that's Chiron, the wounded, the rejected, the down on their luck kind of people. So it tells me that he was very sensitive to the plight of the common man, the hurting man, the rejected human being, man and woman. So yeah, like that. I think that's pretty much it. Incredibly creative, productive character, iconic, independent, revolutionary, brilliant artist, David Bowie. So I always respect the person. Like I end up, when I look into somebody's chart, I always end up liking them more than I had before, just because I kind of get to know them on an intimate level. And maybe that's like a Scorpio thing, you know, with, I don't know, 8th house Sun and Venus, and Scorpio ascendant, North Node and Uranus, and Pluto, all, you know, the intimacy thing, getting to know somebody, like that's a Scorpio thing. Like we don't like people until we get to know them, pretty much. Or sometimes, you know, it goes the other way around. But anyway, I always like people more when I look at their chart and do a little research on them. So that's interesting. So I throw that in there. All right, guys. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy this content. Go to my website to book a reading, macroastrology.com. And, you know, if you want me to do a reading for, you know, any celebrity, a mini reading like this, put that in the comments, or anything else that you want to say. So yeah, that's it. That's it, guys. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.